How are you doing, you wonderful nerd? Looks like we are not done speculating about the Marvel news from Comic-Con. I thought all of the Infinity War stuff would be enough, but then we got the announcement about the Captain Marvel film taking place as a 1990s prequel to the MCU, and it will feature the shape-shifting alien Skrulls, and of course, a Nick Fury that has both of his eyeballs in functioning condition. And that is pretty exciting stuff. I mean, yeah, Captain Marvel, Skrulls, that's all good, but it almost certainly means that we'll get to see exactly what happened to Nick Fury's poor peeper in the film. Finally, the mystery is solved. All we have to do is wait until... Nah, I don't want to do that. So let's fill some time by talking about how Nick Fury lost his eyeball in the comics and some speculation about how he might lose it in the MCU. Now, currently, there's a lot of speculation and theories being thrown out there about how Nick Fury could lose his eye in the MCU based off of just the bare minimum knowledge that we have right now. Maybe there's a big final battle scene at the end of Captain Marvel that causes lots of damage. Maybe they fight each other, and that's why she isn't around in the MCU right now. But in the Marvel Comics, Carol Danvers has nothing to do with how Nick Fury lost his eyeball, and neither do the Skrulls. So Nick Fury debuted in Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos #1 from 1963. We wouldn't figure out how he lost his eye until about 13 years later in Marvel Spotlight #31 from 1976. Nick Fury was a sergeant in World War II, and he was eluding Nazi patrol when he stumbled into a French landmine field. Unfortunately, one of the mines exploded, severely injuring Nick Fury, including irreparable damage to his eye. He was taken in by a Dr. Sternberg, who patched him up as best as he could, but he also saw Fury as a really good test subject for something called the Infinity Formula. It's basically an immortality drug. This is how Nick Fury was able to survive in the Marvel comic book universe from World War II onward without aging like crazy. Although the caveat with the Infinity Formula is that you would have to take it every so often, or you would rapidly age overnight. It's a little bit of a different story over for Ultimate Nick Fury, the one that actually looks like Samuel L. Jackson. We made a whole video about it years ago explaining the resemblance. Go check it out. Maybe don't, it's a really old video. This version of Nick Fury also fought during World War II and was a test subject of Project Rebirth. He was injected with a serum that gave him super strength, slowed his aging, all that good stuff, and it also allowed him to escape. He was later a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. and assigned to the Weapon X program. He was transporting Wolverine when they were ambushed, and he lost his eye in the explosion. But Wolverine carried him off to safety, like that good old chap that he is. Now, I'll be honest, neither of these two explanations seem like something that we're gonna get in the MCU. Very likely, he's gonna lose his eye due to not just a random explosion, but a very personal attack. As he explains in Winter Soldier, he lost his eye because he trusted someone that should not have been trusted. We'll talk more about this in a bit. But before we get to all that, there is one last comic book that I would like to talk about. It's a tie-in comic to the MCU, so already we're questioning the canon of these things, but the comic book features a story about Nick Fury before any Avengers stuff, before Iron Man, before Hulk, before any of that. We don't have a specific date for when this story takes place, but we do have a vague understanding that it takes place during the final years of the Cold War, so around late 80s, early 90s. Which, hey, the 1990s is when Captain Marvel is supposed to take place. Curiouser. Let's see what this story has to offer. Honestly, it's a pretty standard spy story featuring twists and double crosses, but what's interesting here is that Nick Fury was simply a CIA agent during this time in history. He was not a S.H.I.E.L.D. operative, not yet. And what's also interesting is that in this story, he already has his eye patch, meaning he lost his eye before S.H.I.E.L.D. So that raises the question, could the Nick Fury that we see in the Captain Marvel film be a pre-S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Nick Fury, someone who's just a spy for the CIA, perhaps? And maybe his encounter with Captain Marvel and the Skrulls leads him down a path to becoming the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's a pretty interesting idea. However, no. Can't happen. Let me explain why. So in Captain America Winter Soldier, the best MCU film ever made, don't at me, Alexander Pierce tells a story of how he and Fury met. Nick Fury was a deputy chief of a S.H.I.E.L.D. station in Bogota when rebels attacked an embassy there, taking political hostages, including Pierce's own daughter. Pierce wanted to wait and negotiate with the rebels, but Nick Fury instead performed a covert mission to get all of the hostages out safely. The mission was thankfully a success. Nick Fury got all of the hostages out, and Pierce was so grateful that he honored Nick Fury for his bravery in this photograph that we see right here. Now, this picture was taken 5 years after that mission. Now, honestly, we don't have a solid date for it, but we can safely assume it's no later than the early 90s. Thanks to this photograph later on in the film, we can see that Alexander Pierce was at least director of S.H.I.E.L.D. until 92. But the exact date honestly doesn't matter. All we need to know is that Nick Fury was working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and, look here, both of his eyeballs. As much as I love interpreting comic book tie-in media as official canon, this story, unfortunately, doesn't make sense in the timeline of the MCU. Nick Fury should not have an eye patch before he joins S.H.I.E.L.D., based off of what we learned in Winter Soldier. But what this does mean is that in the Captain Marvel movie, we might see a Nick Fury who's still working under Alexander Pierce. And with the added element of the Skrulls being shape-shifting aliens that could impersonate even your closest allies, that would only lend itself to some amazing foreshadowing. And oh man, we haven't even talked about the Skrulls that much. Captain Marvel versus the Skrulls could have easily been a story told entirely in outer space, outside of Earth, much like the Guardians movies, but Fury's involvement means that the Skrulls do invade Earth in some capacity, probably small factions in secret. And the fact that it's never been mentioned in the MCU up until this point means that it's very likely a S.H.I.E.L.D. government cover-up. Fury is one of the only people who knows that the Skrulls not only exist, but came to Earth and very likely impersonated other human beings. Probably someone he was very close to, which goes back to this line.
Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye.
Maybe it was a Skrull who impersonated Captain Marvel herself, who attacked Fury when he was least expecting it. But in all honesty, that doesn't seem like too big of a deal to me. Nick Fury is a spy. He's the spy. He should be used to double crosses and betrayals. I mean, that's kind of a trope of spy life. Whoever scarred his eye would have to be someone so close to him, someone that he would never expect, that it would cause him to never trust a single human being ever again. And this is gonna sound really crazy, so everyone put on your tinfoil hats, but we don't know much about Nick Fury's family, but we do know that at the time he and Alexander Pierce met, his mother was still alive.
1435 Elmhurst Drive. When I first met Nick, his mother lived at 1437.
And since that potentially takes place around the same time frame as the Captain Marvel movie, so the Mama Fury Skrull theory, I am fully prepared to admit, is nothing but speculation. But a shape-shifting alien disguised as a beloved family member attacking him would not only scar him for life physically, but potentially emotionally, forcing him to adopt the mindset of permanent distrust of everyone around him. I mean, if you were him and knew that the Skrulls existed and could take the form of anyone, even those closest to you, then yeah, you'd probably keep everyone at a great distance. The Captain Marvel movie could be a really interesting way to flesh out the character of Nick Fury and tell us about his personal life before completely demolishing it and setting him on a path of being cold, distant, and mysterious. Okay, I think I'm about done now. You can take off your tinfoil hats, stop complaining in the comments about my crazy speculation. I'm just as aware of how ridiculous it is as you are. But I would love to know your thoughts in the comments about the MCU Nick Fury. How do you think he's gonna lose his eye in Captain Marvel? Let me hear your wildest, craziest theories right down in the comments below. Hit that big sexy subscribe button and the bell icon so you can join the notification squad and never miss another video that we produce here at NerdSync. Here are some other videos that YouTube thinks you will like, and as you look those over, I want to thank our patrons, especially Christopher Lang, Patrick Cattery, Mike Harville, Kendra, Elizabeth Monsell, and the rest of the wonderful nerds who support us over at patreon.com/nerdsync. My name is Scott, reminding you to read between the panels and grow smarter through comics. See ya.